Hey guys, this is Dave,
And Jasmine.
and this is Engineered by God. And we've been together for over 8 years now, married for nearly 4 years. And to be honest with you, the relationship has been pretty incredible. But there are some things that I wish I would have known about prior to saying I do that might have helped me to overcome, or help us to overcome some initial struggles and challenges in the beginning of our marriage.
Right, so this video is a couple things that we wish we knew before we got married.
Something that I really wish that I would have known about, or maybe just place a greater emphasis on, because I feel like I had the idea in my mind, is emotional honesty. For me, emotional honesty is the ability to communicate where you are emotionally when you're there. Early on in our marriage, I was noticing a pattern in myself where, maybe Jazz might have done something to upset me, or maybe something at work had happened that was, bothering me. And she would ask me straight up, "Hey, are you okay?" And I would just reply, "Yeah, I'm fine," which wasn't true. And without realizing it, I felt like I was harming our relationship now that I look back at it. In one sense, I was robbing her the opportunity to support me with whatever I was dealing with. And secondly, I would do this thing which sounds silly to say out loud, but I would almost convince myself in my mind, if she didn't press further or really try to figure out what was going on, that she actually didn't care, which would create a secondary conflict that didn't need to happen at all. And I think oftentimes, when we are emotionally dishonest and we reply with the "I'm fine" or "I'm okay," we kind of mask it as the strength of being able to shoulder it on your own. But really what it was I was just too weak to ask for help, too weak to expose myself as to where I was in the moment. So I think that I wish I would have really understood, hey, it's okay to admit that I'm not okay. And it doesn't mean that we have to have the conversation right there, but starting and just being honest with your partner and letting them know that, I'm not where I want to be right now emotionally.
What do you think? Is there a specific moment you think that, like a light bulb moment, if you will?
I remember listening to a podcast and that concept was brought out, and I think that kind of really illuminated it for me, because I think when I would do it, I would feel like this isn't right, like I'm not okay, and I'm going through this cycle of pretending like I'm okay and then getting worse and then reacting negatively towards you. And so once I kind of heard that term, I was like, this is the thing that I'm doing that's not helping us in our marriage. So yeah, I think that's the thing for me personally, that it's really important to be emotionally honest with your partner.
That's good. So for me, I think my first one kind of goes along with that. But my first one is basically on the importance of trust in the relationship. And for me, that means I need to be able to trust my spouse, my partner, to handle me, to handle my heart, trust them with my heart, and whatever I'm going through. I need to know that when I am experiencing some negative things, some bad feelings, if I'm just in a bad place, I can go to him. Or if I'm struggling maybe with some issues, but I can go to him and talk to him about it, and he's going to, one, welcome me, with open arms, and two, he's not going to judge me or condemn me, and he's going to be patient and respectful of my feelings, and we're going to work through it together. And I think that that's important because, you guys are now going to be doing this thing called life together for the rest of your life, right? So outside of God, you really want to make sure that you have that kind of relationship with your spouse, so that way you can tackle all the challenges that come, that life throws at you. If you can't do that with your spouse, then you might go to outside sources. And I remember hearing, like, before we got married, listening to different podcasts and things about marriage or what have you, And one of the things that they talked about was basically this idea of, emotional cheating. It's not just a physical thing, but really when you feel like, oh, there's a part of you that you can open up with someone else outside of God other than your spouse, and then you guys form this bond, this kind of intimacy in a certain way, and you can't do those things with your spouse, and that is a form, well, at least in our marriage, a form of, I guess, cheating or like infidelity. So the importance for us, it's just important for us to make sure that we keep that kind of relationship with each other and have that trust and support.
All right, that's good. That's good. For me, another thing that I wish I would have, I think I kind of understood, I knew it, but just to be eager to forgive. So no one is perfect, right? So it's bound to happen that I'm going to do something that annoys you, or you do something that annoys me or upsets me. And what would happen is, say Jazz did something that upset me. In that moment, I would be looking at her through a lens of anger. I would just be upset and I couldn't see past that. And then I would have to remind myself of a couple of things. First, this is a person who's given me so much love and so much joy over the years that she deserves some grace in this moment, right? Secondly, I know that I married a person who wouldn't intentionally do me harm, so she might not even be noticing that what she's doing might be bothering me. And thirdly, God has forgiven me for so much that the least I can do is forgive my wife, that extend that same forgiveness. And so I remember having a conversation with my dad. He and my mom are almost married for 30 years now, and he was telling me like how he just skips being mad altogether because he realized that the conflict or the argument never really solved the issue. But communication and hard work was kind of what put the things back together. And so I just started to try and do this in our marriage. And so now when Jazz might do something that upsets me, I'm looking to forgive, and I'm kind of looking at her through a lens of grace and love now. And the cool thing too is when you kind of practice this forgiveness, where you're more eager to forgive, your capacity to do it grows. Yeah. So now, like when I first started this, obviously it wasn't second nature to me. So it was a little more difficult. But now, if she does something that might bother me, instead of me approaching it as me versus her, and one of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong, it's now us together versus that issue, and we're going to overcome it together.
I'll admit that he's way better at that than me. I'm still working, but I have gotten better at that. So that's been a good. So the second thing for me is that love is a verb, and with that, it's an action word. So you need to wake up every day and choose to love your spouse. So
got it on tape, right? You got it on tape.
He's thinking something smart. So a lot of times it's framed as just an emotional attachment to a person. So you want to have these romantic feelings for this person all the time. But I think that is kind of a dangerous way of looking at it, because then it's like, well, when there's going to be times when those emotions may not be as strong as they were in another point, because maybe you guys are just going through a rough patch in your marriage, and so you need to make sure that you're making that active choice to love them. Wake up and try and have a heart of service for your partner. So how can I make his day better? How can I love him better today? And part of that also is knowing how your partner receives love. There's talk about the 5 love languages. That's a good place to start. So you really just want to make sure that you are putting in the work every day to make your relationship flourish and grow and blossom, and spending time working on your intimacy, right. And all those things, because you're going to need that when times get rough.
So let me ask you, like you asked me earlier, was there a moment that kind of like really clicked for you? the idea of love is an act, active. You know what I mean? You're continually doing it. You're not getting to love and you're stopping. You're moving forward. Like, is there a moment in your mind where you're like, oh, I see this now in my relationship?
I think we watched some videos and that it kind of touched on that idea, and then it really clicked. I guess kind of when I experienced it, I guess just a little bit, just small hand, because I wasn't in a good place emotionally, mentally, and realizing that shouldn't really affect how I show you love and interact with you.
Right.
And trying to really make an effort to be nice, be kind, be loving. So I think that's when it really, I guess, like clicked.
Okay, that makes sense. So my last thing would be, there's a ton of things, but the last thing for this video is that marriage doesn't fix anything. Like, it doesn't fix anything. And everyone will tell you that before getting married. And for some reason, you think that you're the exception to the rule. And I know one area in our life specifically where I was really let down by my expectation that marriage would kind of fix this area is our spiritual lives together. Like, I thought once we get married, we're going to be in the same home. We're going to be spending time in the Word together. We're going to be praying. It's going to be, it's just going to be, we're going to be in a much better position than we were before getting married. And that wasn't true at all. Like, the same issues we had before we said I do were still with us after, and for a while after. I mean, even to this day, I mean, I think we're trying to build to the point where we want to be. But in my mind, I thought, oh, October 15th, 2016, the next day, we're going to have it all figured out. And that wasn't the case at all. So I think whatever you have in your mind that's an area of weakness that you're wanting to improve in, and that you're hoping that maybe this relationship or this marriage is going to help change, if you're not working on it now, it's not going to be fixed. You have to be doing that active work for whatever you want to see grow in your life today. And so, yeah, I think the understanding that marriage is not going to fix anything is really important.
Yeah, and I think that translates to a lot of different areas in your life too. But just don't have this goal as the fix for whatever you're going through.
Right.
And so my last one, I guess, was a big one for me, and that's just embracing differences. So
I'm glad this is all recorded.
So, for me, I think in the beginning, you're spending, like we've said a lot, I think, throughout this video, but you're spending a lot of time with this person, and you will be spending time with this person for the rest of your life. And I think that a lot of times it's easy for you, when you spend so much time with a person, it's easy for you to notice their flaws, or spot their flaws, or spot the things that they do that you don't like, that look different from you, or you would do this different and they do it this way, whatever it is.
And what's crazy is, in your mind, you assume the way you do it is the right way. Like, like your mold is how they is the proper mold.
Yeah. And I'm a little controlling, so this is really this was a big one for me that I had to overcome or learn. Okay, so like I was saying, you spend a lot of time with this person and you get to see their flaws. And I think that there are a couple things that you need to do. I guess mainly two things that you need to do, or that I had to do, which is one, remember all the things that you like. Stop focusing so much on the things you don't like or the things you do differently, and just focus on what is good and what you love and why you chose this person. And that just helps you, that's just helped me kind of get out of a space of just negativity. and then ultimately that just doesn't lead to a good space for your marriage overall. And then just like I said, embracing those differences. Realize that those differences are what's going to make you guys even better as a unit. Is what's going to make your parenting more complete if you have kids, or whatever it is you're doing. Having those differences is what makes you guys better together. And it kind of goes along the same point with, that's why there needs to be diversity in companies, because there needs to be a whole bunch of different ways of thinking about a thing, because there's no one right way to do pretty much anything. There's a whole bunch of different ways to approach a problem, and that's what's going to help you guys when you're in the thick of it, I guess.
Right. Like in our marriage, the dynamic that we have is you're more of structure and planning, and I'm more of a laid back and let's kind of go with the flow. And there are areas where your approach is better, and like we're gonna follow that approach. And there's some areas where maybe we need to let the reins back, let the reins go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're both the same way, we can't get the benefit of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And so embracing differences is important.
It's a big one.
Right.
It's a big one, and your differences can be such a blessing. So just remembering that when you're upset that they don't want to do something the way you want, remember that those same differences or difference of opinion is going to be a blessing at some point or other in your marriage.
Right.
So that's the end of this video. Those are all the tips that we feel like we wanted to give you at the moment. There are a lot more that we could have given or said, but for the sake of this video, we wanted to keep it short and sweet. But if you guys have any things that you wish you knew before marriage, or tips or advice while dating in preparation for marriage, please leave them in the comments, and it could really help other people who are in that situation, in that space.
Right. And if you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe for future videos.
Yep. That's it. See ya.